Finnish black metal hails, it's time to review a debut album by some guys from my home city, Victimarum, and this is something that I previously reviewed as demo, not the same release obviously, but the same band, and now they finally have their debut album out. 3 years later, then the band was founded in 2022, the demo was out in 2023, so yeah, they haven't been hurrying too much, but yes, been very active, doing gigs and whatnot, and now finally full album to release through Signal Rex. And here it is, the new album, Seitsemän soihdun valossa, which means in the light of 7 torches. Now you can go and figure out, is that a reference to the 7 seals or something other? As you can figure out from the Finnish song titles, Finnish styles, and being quite young guys, this is not exactly the most original black metal coming from Finland, but in a way quite typical coming from this country where it is what has been so active past 30 plus years. We could pretty much say 35 years, and often overshadowed by Norwegian and Swedish bands back in the 90s, but ever since 2000s and onwards, Finnish scene has been very, very strong. And of course, a lot of these names are now highly praised globally, even if not that big as Norwegian and Swedish counterparts. Here is the booklet. For some reason, no lyrics whatsoever, just a promo picture. However, this is somehow very tweaked quality. You could almost figure out if the pages would be stuck, but no, this is how it is. Couple of promo pics line up, and that's it. Can only wonder why there are no lyrics to be in the first place, but maybe they are too obscure. I do not know. Maybe it's a budget thing. So anyway, here, let's go for Metal Archive's site for Victimarum, and let's talk about this very album. Since this is being filmed a couple of days before the actual review day, there are no track links mentioned, but this is pretty standard. I think it was something like 43 minutes and 9 tracks, obviously. So it's very basic, kind of a default setting for a lot of albums out there. Now, musically, Victimarum does nothing new, nothing outstanding, but what they do is good, and that matters more than being original in its own right. So if you're now thinking, okay, it's Finnish black metal, 2025, new guys, they are probably gonna like, and there you have it, they are gonna sound like Horna, Satanic Warmaster, and a bunch of other having a group song and then making a baby. Now, literally speaking, this could be, babies of some first Finnish black metal generation kids, because these are somewhat younger guys, so you could really have it done. Obviously, I'm joking here in that sense, because it's not like black metal people having kids that old that are already doing black metal, not in, the big scope of things, but theoretically could be possible. Musically, however, this is very much following the steps of bands like Horna, Satanic Warmaster, Sargeist, etc. You will definitely hear this kind of a Finnish black metal sound throughout the album. And by sound, I don't mean just the production, how the guitars actually sound, but, the general feeling, how the riffs are done, how certain details are put into place and all that stuff. So it's a very, very typical Finnish black metal album, for better or worse. I think for the better, because this is really that good of an album that it can actually challenge a lot of 1990s black metal albums coming from Finland. If I would compare this to, say, for example, early works by Horna some 30 years ago, I would say Victimarum now nails it better than what Horna did in the beginning. However, obviously, experience and understanding often go with, hand in hand, and meaning nowadays Horna is somewhat better than Victimarum at this point, but it's not really fair to compare these, because there is like 30 years of difference counting from when the bands were started and so on. So while Victimarum is not doing anything revolutionary or different, it doesn't really matter, because the songwriting is pretty good. While these songs are to some degree like easy to predict how they will go, what kind of riffs are present, they still somehow maintain the quality throughout the course. Now, as seasoning, there are things like, say, a little bit of growly vocals, which to me feels like they're unnecessary. Something like a seasoning rather than defining, so it doesn't really matter, but, to me it feels like these are because probably the vocalist wanted to do something different out of the comfort zone and all, but I don't think these are really needed. It's almost like you have, say, sometimes clean vocals in one song, or a little bit keyboard here or there, or a spoken sample or whatever. Now, I get this from a band guy myself. You sometimes want to do this, but, they are not really needed, nor do they really define the whole album. But what does define this is rather up-tempo stuff, sometimes faster, sometimes just, kind of a brisk pacing. And what I was really hoping that there would be really some kind of aggressive blasting and all that stuff, but that is not in the game. So this is definitely more, once again, leaning to whatever bands like Horna or Satanic Warmaster and the like are doing, from mid-tempo to somewhat up-tempo, but you're not really getting some kind of a Marduk level blasting or those other bands which are known for fast tempo. I mean, think about like bands like Nurjibel and you're like, wow, this drummer is amazing. You don't really get this kind of a feeling from this one, but to be honest, it doesn't matter. It could be interesting, however, if they had these kind of seasonings in the game rather than, growly parts or whatever. But all in all, I'm now getting sidetracked here. All in all, I would say Seitsemän soihdun valossa is a really good debut album, and I think it really checks all the right boxes. If something is missing, it might be this figuring out their own style, which isn't there yet. Maybe that will be with album number 2 or 3, usually the 3 being the crossroads point where bands are really, hey, we gotta do something different after 2 first initial albums. Time will tell how it will go. I'm looking forward very much where this band will be in 5 or 10 years from where they started, because it's already given that these guys handle their style, and even if it's somewhat unoriginal, at least it's good in the same given department. So, what are you waiting for? Check out the band in question. Links are included in the description box. Now go and enjoy.